Breaking overnight, the administration is going to stop the bailouts to insurance companies.
He said the Democrats' Obamacare is imploding.
This president has said, I made a promise to the American people, and now I'm going to keep it.
President Trump is set to announce later today, we believe, the fate of the Iran nuclear deal at the White House.
At the very first negotiating session, the Iranians told the U.S. that ending enrichment was off the table, and we should have walked out of the room right then.
The Fox News alert, a New Orleans police officer is shot and killed in an ambush attack.
The American woman and her family, freed from the Taliban, have just boarded a plane out of Pakistan.
General John Kelly making a surprise appearance before the press.
Talk about frustrations. What are his frustrations right now?
One of his frustrations is you, all of you, not all of you, but many of you.
How do you like me now?
Ainsley, I'm going to call you out. I think that is hashtag fake news.
Right. I think, doesn't he say put a boot in your ass?
That's a different song.
Oh.
That's the red, white, and blue.
He sings a lot of songs. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. As you just saw on the ticker, we've got Geraldo coming up. He's right over there. And also we've got the Attorney General for the great United States of America with us.
Coming up.
And Senator Rand Paul, too.
That's right.
If the rundown's correct.
We have a good line. It's correct. We have a good lineup.
So.
We also have a Fox News alert. President Trump delivering some major campaign promises, taking matters into his own hands on repealing and replacing Obamacare.
And today he's set to rip up the... No, he's not necessarily going to rip up the Iranian nuclear deal. He's going to speak about it, and he's going to change it.
He's going to decertify it, we think. Knowing more is Kevin Corke. He's live in our nation's capital on the North Lawn. Kevin, what do we know about the day ahead?
Hey, very busy day, guys. But first of all, let's talk about health care. And you're right, the president swinging the proverbial axe at the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, this time cleaving some $7 billion in insurance company subsidies, once again taking every opportunity to try to deconstruct the law that he says was a terrible decision by Democrats when they rammed that one through Congress. And so yesterday you heard the president talking about it. Let me share a bit of a White House statement as they now are saying, look, this is it, folks. We're just going to stop bailing out insurance companies. Here's what it reads in part. Based on guidance from the Department of Justice, Department of Health and Human Services has concluded that there is no appropriation for cost-sharing reduction payments to insurance companies under Obamacare. In light of this analysis, the government cannot lawfully make the cost-sharing reduction payments. By the way, the president also on Twitter this morning, as he is wont to do, he tweeted this to Democrats: Obamacare is imploding. He's putting it on Democrats. Massive subsidy payments to their pet insurance companies has stopped. Should be have stopped, but okay. Dems should call me to fix. Now, Democrats, as you can imagine, are really up in arms about this. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, joint statement. Sadly, instead of working to lower health costs, that is, for Americans, it seems President Trump will single-handedly hike Americans' health premiums. Here's the real rub. It is a spiteful act of vast, pointless sabotage leveled at working families and the middle class in every corner of America. Harsh words indeed, but the president's obviously listen, he's not worried about what they think. He's worried about what he hopes the American people want, and that is him to do something about Obamacare. Yesterday, you saw him use the power of the pen to sign an executive action designed to increase competition, allowing these small business collectives to form over state lines. Guys, that's just part of the day. Don't forget, we also have the president, as you pointed out, making comments about the Iran nuclear deal. He's not expected to recertify that. He's going to kick it down to Capitol Hill. He'll talk about that and much more coming up later today. I'm out of time, so back to you.
All right. Great report. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Look who's here. Geraldo Rivera joins us.
Hi.
Geraldo, what do you make of the president piece by piece? Since Congress apparently can't help him do anything about Obamacare, he's going to do it with his pen, and he's going to do it by other methods.
The reason I am lamenting the action is I am an advocate of a bipartisan approach to the nation's health care situation, and I don't understand why particularly this president, who is not dogmatic and who's not like a traditional Republican, why he, of all people, can't reach out to his fellow New Yorkers, for example, Chuck Schumer.
He did. He called him last week and said, let's take one more stab at it.
But instead, he did this this fiat, which I think is helping accelerate the doom of Obamacare. It's like passive aggressive, in my view. You call it a bailout of the insurance industry.
Right.
I call it a subsidy for people who can't afford health insurance. And if he does away with the subsidy, what are those poor people going to do? I think it's very problematic.
Ultimately, won't this force our lawmakers in Washington to come up with a bipartisan deal?
I don't buy that, Ainsley, and the reason is they are so dysfunctional, our lawmakers, that the fact that you give them incentive to do something doesn't necessarily mean that something can get done. They don't talk to their own committee opposites in the other party. They can't craft a compromise bill. My goodness, why don't they sit together and, for once in 8 years, sit together and come up with something that works?
Senator Patty Murray and Senator Lamar Alexander are working on a bipartisan deal that went on the shelf because it looked like they were going to give a shot at the Lindsey Graham deal. So it's two executive orders. One is going to allow them to allow insurers to go across state lines and allow people to go across state lines to get a better deal. It's also going to allow them to form associations and groups in order to get a discount, too. So if you're the Lone Ranger deli down the block, you might be able to get a series of delis, get a bigger group, and be able to get that in policy.
I'm a Republican. I'm for anything that increases competition. I had no understanding of why insurance stops at the Hudson River when you got New Jersey inside on the other side, for example.
Politics.
I think that interstate commerce is what made America great, and that is a good thing. I really do believe, though, when you give healthy people an out, low-cost insurance, you get the low cost. What does that leave? That leaves the older, sicker, less economically viable folks to fend for themselves. And you take away their subsidy also, the net result is going to be, let's be very clear about this, the net result is going to be more and more millions of low-income Americans who cannot afford health care insurance, and I fundamentally believe that is unfair.
Well, he put together a plan that needed $7 billion of subsidies that wasn't there prior, and he wrote it from the executive branch, not the legislative branch. So the president says, I am tired of going to my savings account to pay for a bill for a program I don't like.
Well, you know, why is Rand Paul, and he's going to be on the show, Senator Paul, why is he hanging out with the president now, and they've been at odds, you know, since the campaign?
Yeah.
They're hanging out because Rand Paul fundamentally does not believe in public insurance. He believes in private. He believes that you take care of yourself, I'll take care of myself. That's the way he goes.
Right.
You know, that whole Ayn Rand libertarian approach. I get that, but the country has evolved past that. We are compassionate, generous people. We want all our citizens not to die for want of a doctor.
Right. And I'd say Rand Paul wants them to die.
Rand Paul doesn't care if they die. I mean, he may in some fundamental sense, but politically that's not his problem.
He's going to want to weigh in on
Well, I ask him specifically.
Sure.
Is it not a fact that millions of low-income Americans will heretofore be denied health insurance? Yes or no?
But most of those low-income folks...
Take that exact question.
And then if you want to construe it into, you know, the rich shall live, the poor will die.
But most of the low-income folks are on Medicaid, which helps them.
A lot of them are.
A
lot of them are. But remember, Medicaid expansion is another aspect of this embattled law.
Harold, we also want to talk to you about Puerto Rico.
Oh,
you were down there. Your family lives there. You're from Puerto Rico. You used to own an island down there?
I did until 4 months before the storm hit. And the island survived, ironically.
Really?
Everything is fine. The solar panels, the pool, everything is fine. But I'm so glad you asked me about Puerto Rico, because I want to say this about the president. He has been getting the worst, most dishonest press about his visit to Puerto Rico. It is staggering to me how unfair, how grotesquely unfair the reporting has been. For example, I can attest, because I saw with my own eyes, that 95% of everyone he came in physical contact with or who lined the routes were all enthusiastic about his visit. What I can't understand is why the president, my friend, insists on tweeting in a way that scares people and
Go
says...
ahead and read the tweet. It's in the teleprompter.
We cannot keep FEMA, the military, and the first responders who have been amazing under the most difficult circumstances in PR forever. We know that. But they were 7 years in Hurricane Katrina. They were, in Louisiana for Hurricane Katrina. There's no similar admonition to the victims in Louisiana and Texas from Harvey or Florida from Irma, it makes it seem as if he is thinking of Puerto Ricans in a different scale of what is deserving of aid and what is not. And I think that is so sad, because I believe that the federal and other responders are doing the best job they can. And the president is right about something else. He is right about the fact that the infrastructure in Puerto Rico was an absolute disaster before Hurricane Maria. It is a dysfunctional system. It is a corrupt system. The power authority should be in jail. They have used the private, the public Puerto Rican Electric Authority as their own private piggy bank. They should privatize energy in Puerto Rico.
Let's see if this tweet makes you feel better, because it just came in. Why don't you go ahead and read it?
What is this, like a reading lesson?
Yeah, go ahead. Go on.
The wonderful people of Puerto Rico, with their unmatched spirit, now you're talking, Mr. President, know how bad things were before the hurricanes. I will always be with them. They were awful before the hurricane. 70% of Puerto Rico was out of power before Maria hit. From the Irma was a glancing blow. Last year, 3 days, it was one fire, one power plant. 3 days, the entire island was blacked out. We should bring in whoever it takes, bring in GE, bring in the Chinese, bring in somebody to buy that power company, run it as a business, and give people reliable. I can't have my Aunt Ellie sitting in the dark anymore.
Well, nobody wants her to be sitting in the dark.
Well, we got to regenerate her.
Look, the whole grid was wiped out. They got to start from scratch.
But the grid...
There was no grid.
The grid...
It was a bad grid.
Why didn't, for instance, they knew the hurricanes were coming. They knew it was going to be catastrophic. 16,000 miles of lines. Why didn't they attempt to cut the trees down that were over the power wires?
Well, as they restore the grid, maybe they will bury the cables underground.
Bury the cables.
This is not going to be a problem.
Absolutely, bury the cables.
I hear that's outrageously expensive to do.
Yeah, is that the president's fault? They weren't cutting down the trees? You got to do.
No,
I
want to make that clear. That is the Puerto Rican Electric Power Authority, PREPA. Okay. They are $6 billion in debt. They are bankrupt, and people should be in jail. They bought, for instance.
You should be made. Why don't you?
I should. I would love to. They bought sludge, and they charged the consumers for first-rate diesel. They bought sludge that pollutes and gunk and to fuel the generator, and they charged for diesel. I mean, these are crooks.
Yeah, the problem is the aid's not getting to the people. That's what really frustrates the president.
And they are so needy.
Because it's the government stopping the delivery.
Puerto Rico is so devastated. It's the largest natural disaster in modern history in terms of people affected.
Great to see you, Geraldo.
You too. Nice to be dressing
like
the
Don't be worried. You're not going to run into Rand Paul in the hallway. He's in Washington. We've got him live.
I like his spunk, but I stand by what I said.
We heard. All right.
Thanks, Geraldo. Well, he was by the president's side as he was signing that executive order on health care. Senator Rand Paul is here with the path forward on repeal and replace. That's coming up next.
And remember that Missouri state lawmaker punished after saying she hoped the president would be assassinated? Well, guess what she's been up to lately?
Good morning. We're back with a Fox News alert. Overnight, a New Orleans police officer shot and killed in an ambush attack. Police say a 30-year-old suspect opened fire on the cops as soon as they got out of their patrol cars to investigate something at an apartment complex.
There was a subject who fired upon our officers, striking one of our officers several times.
One officer hit several times, collapsing to the ground, while one or two officers fired back at the gunman. That suspect is now under arrest and at the hospital being treated for gunshot wounds. The identity of the fallen officer is still unknown. New Orleans Police Department tweeting, quote, "We have lost one of our brothers." NOPD grieves this morning. Also breaking right now, the American woman and her family, freed from the Taliban, have just boarded a plane out of Pakistan. The flight reportedly bound for London, but their final destination at this point is unclear. Caitlin Coleman and her husband, who is from Canada, had been held since 2012. They have 3 young children, all born while in captivity. The Trump administration working with the Pakistani military to carry out the rescue. And another Fox News alert. The raging California wildfires now among the deadliest in the state's history. 31 people killed, hundreds more are still missing. The intense flames destroying an area the size of New York City. Officials now looking into the possibility the flames could have sparked from downed power lines and blown transformers. Brian?
All right, thanks so much, Julian. 18 minutes now after the hour. Just minutes away, Attorney General Jeff Sessions will be joining us live. That's what he looks like when he's smiling.
Since I started running and since I became president of the United States, I just keep hearing repeal, replace, repeal, replace. Well, we're starting that process, and we're starting it in a very positive manner. And I can say when you get Rand Paul on your side, it has to be positive. That I can tell you.
And there he goes. It turns around, and he got a pen for the movement because I think Senator Rand Paul and the president worked together on this. And joining us now is Rand Paul himself. Senator, what role did you play in having the president push forward on that executive order yesterday?
You know, for several months we've been talking to him about the idea. We've talked with the Secretary of Labor about the idea, and they've always been excited about it, and we were tremendously excited yesterday that it came to fruition. Still going to take a while. You know, they have to evaluate the regulations, and then insurance takes about a year to be sold in advance. So unfortunately, people actually buying insurance across state lines may take a year or so to happen. But we are excited that it's going to happen because this is the one part of the marketplace that works. And people don't realize this, but 50% of big corporations, really 50% of people who buy private insurance, already buy it across state lines through these type of plans. And this is mostly really good insurance. If you work for Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Amazon, Microsoft, this is the kind of insurance you get, but now we're going to let individuals join associations and get the same good insurance that these big corporations get.
Here's what Tim Ryan said, and you know he wanted to replace Nancy Pelosi. He says this dismantles coverage protections for people with pre-existing conditions and further disadvantages the sick and the middle class. What's your reaction?
Well, he's confused because the group coverage requires no discrimination, and it also protects against pre-existing conditions and has since 1996. This would be the same insurance you have at a big corporation. If you work for a big corporation, let's say you work for Ford or General Motors, if you get sick, you're not fired. They don't not hire you because you have a pre-existing illness. People are protected in these big corporations under big corporate cross-state ERISA plans. They're protected. That's all we're doing is setting it up so individuals can get this as well.
Senator Paul, is another challenge that some of these insurers might be selling plans that aren't comprehensive enough to give people the coverage that's necessary that was there under Obamacare? Or was that the intent, to loosen up these regulations and give people these very light plans?
It does loosen up the regulations, and it's unknown whether you'll get some that are catastrophic plans that really are high deductible and don't cover much, but you also may get the leverage to get even better plans. So, for example, the National Restaurant Association may be representing 15 million people. If 15 million people are represented by one person, my guess is the leverage you'll have with the insurance company will actually provide very good insurance. So I anticipate that people are going to get very good insurance at a much less expensive cost because we're empowering the consumer to have negotiating power.
Of course, you have a lot of respect for the power of Congress. You know, executive orders drove you nuts when President Obama was doing it. Now you have another one here, and this will expire when this president leaves in 4 or 8 years. Do you feel personally responsible at all that the president has to go this route?
Well, you know, the interesting thing is I look at executive orders this way. If you're going to take an executive order, create a new government program, or create a big new immigration program that controverts the law, that's wrong. But actually what President Trump did yesterday is he looked back at the original law and said, you know what, do people have the right to associate? Actually, under the First Amendment, we're guaranteed the right to associate. So I think that there's a way of looking at this that says, you know what, all the president did yesterday was allow people the freedom to associate, and I think it's a great idea.
Senator, there's something else that's coming your way, and I think the House, the Speaker of the House said, I'm going to stay till Christmas to get tax reform done. Do you feel as though you're going to go to work, you personally, going to go to work on tax reform to try to get to a yes, or are you just going to stay in your corner and let the legislation come to you?
I've been the biggest proponent of cutting taxes in Washington. When I ran for president, I had a large tax cut. I agree completely with the president. I talked with him yesterday. We're both on the same page. But I have warned them that there's a problem with the swamp putting this bill forward. The people in the middle who pay the 25% rate, if you take away 2 of their big deductions but leave their rate the same, there's a big danger a lot of people in the middle class will get a tax increase. I've warned them of this. I think they're aware of it. The president looked at his people directly yesterday, pointed a finger at them and said, I will not raise the taxes on the middle class. I take that to heart. I believe the president, but the bill has to be fixed. And the reason I'm making noise about it is I want to be yes, but they got to fix the bill so we don't have a big increase on the middle class.
What are those deductions that worry you?
Well, the deductions aren't as important to me whether you get rid of them or not, but you have to either adjust the rate or adjust the bracket so you don't have a big tax increase. If the rate stays the same and you get rid of deductions and you don't change the brackets, you got a big tax increase. So they're aware of the problem, and we're hoping that it gets fixed. The reason I'm making a lot of noise now is once it comes out of committee, there's no fixing it. Amendments never happen around here. They never pass. So we got to get it right the first time because I want it to pass.
And help us understand, because our audience, mostly middle class, they want to know what is middle class. What do you understand it to be?
Well, middle class can be defined different ways. According to the tax code, those who pay in the 25% bracket, it starts for a family at $75,000 and goes up to $300,000. Now, some people might say, oh, that's rich people. That is the upper middle class, but that is the ones that will be affected if we get rid of deductions and leave the 25% rate the same. So you have to understand that in the beginning, because we don't want, like in my state, it would be 200,000 people with a tax increase. Right. And these are the solid middle class. They're business owners. They're doing pretty well, but we don't want to punish them because they are the engine of employment in small business.
And the president will not get another 4 years if the working class and the middle class are left behind again.
And it's not his intention, but I'm worried about the swamp creatures up here who get so obsessed with policy and getting rid of the state income tax deduction that they forget that the primary goal of conservatives is lowering taxes, not just tax policy. It's actually making sure everybody's taxes are lower.
And at some point, we're going to have to go into entitlements. Senator Rand Paul, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead, Attorney General Jeff Sessions will join us live. He's taken on sanctuary cities once and for all, and certain cities specifically. And Anna Koyman, you know she loves to work out, and she's expecting a baby. Do those two mix? I think so.
This is a Fox News alert. Overnight, President Trump has pledged to halt the Obamacare subsidies, and some states are already threatening to sue. The administration will stop the bailouts to the insurers, which are to the tune of $7 billion. So you can see him yesterday signing that executive order, allowing people to buy insurance across state lines. According to the administration, that should save people a lot of money. Meanwhile, what is going on with the very latest on these bailouts? Got to ask is the U.S. Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. He joins us from the Department of Justice. Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be with you this morning.
All right. So I know members of the Republican Party have referred to these as bailouts to the insurance industry to the tune of $7 billion. Tell us a little bit about why the administration looked to the Department of Justice on guidance on what to do regarding this.
There's been controversy from the beginning. It was just one of the many problems with this Rube Goldberg health care plan. And the question was, Steve, can you actually, the president, the executive branch, spend this $7 billion a year to subsidize these insurance companies without an appropriation of Congress? It's clear, we believe, that the appropriation must come from Congress. The president cannot do it. A federal judge has already held that that is the case. The Congressional Research Service has also held that some time ago. So the president has decided that we need to end this process and get on a lawful basis.
Mr. Attorney General, explain this to me. When Obamacare passed a number of years ago, this wasn't in there. How did they just invent it?
Well, I think it was in there, and originally the president asked Congress to appropriate the money. He had difficulties with that, and so they just started spending the money on their own. The executive branch cannot spend money under the Constitution that the legislative branch has not appropriated.
Well, I tell you what, there's a congressman out in California, now the Attorney General, Xavier Becerra. He says he's going to sue regarding this. He says this morning, we are prepared to sue. This is sabotage. Nearly everyone from California to Maine has family who can't afford health care. Without the Affordable Care Act and its subsidies for these families, millions more would be left in the cold without coverage. What's your response to the Attorney General in California?
It's time for Congress to fix this bill. That's what needs to happen. Congress has got to get together. Republicans and the Democrats have got to come on board, and they've got to develop a plan that will actually work. It cannot continue in this fashion. It's in a death spiral, it seems to me. All I can say is that we're confident that the judge in Virginia that's already ruled on this is correct, and that these expenditures cannot go on without Congress's support.
Let's switch gears, Mr. Attorney General. I know you've been on this program talking in the past about how you would like to cut off federal funds to sanctuary cities. You tried to do it earlier. I know you were, I think there was a court in the great state of Illinois that said, no, you can't do that. Now you're giving the sanctuary cities one last chance to go ahead and start enforcing the law. Tell us about what you're doing.
Well, we'd like to not have a problem. We'd like for them to get every grant that comes out of the Department of Justice, because we'd like for them to be in cooperation with federal officers. But these cities have passed laws and regulations in their cities requiring their police officers not to spend one dime or any of their time while on duty to communicate with the federal officers, to find out the immigration status of a person they arrested, let's say, for drug dealing. Not even asked. They're prohibited from doing that. They're also prohibited from telling the federal officers that they have somebody that's been convicted of a serious crime that's due to be deported. They won't tell them that they have them, so they're not able, the feds are not able to deport them. This undermines relationships that are in an astounding way.
And what sort of money are you talking about cutting off? The law enforcement grants or all federal funds?
Just the law enforcement grants. It's not lawful to, let's say, cut off Medicare funds or highway funds in that amount. But there are a number of law enforcement grants we don't think should be given to jurisdictions that explicitly reject cooperation with our federal officers. It's just unbelievable to me that we would have that. It means that these individuals who should be removed from the city, these criminals, are able to be released back into that community.
Do you think there's a possibility any of these sanctuary cities are going to say, you know what, the Attorney General's right, let's start enforcing the law?
Well, yes. In fact, Miami-Dade is met, and we've worked. They've been approved. Milwaukee has worked with us, and they're approved. Las Vegas was on a list, and we find that they're in agreement. So, yes, a number of cities are reviewing their situation and will not be on a list of cities that are not cooperating.
All right. The Attorney General of the United States of America, Jeff Sessions, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you.
All right, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, time for some headlines with Jillian.
Hey, good morning, Steve. Good morning to you at home. Hope your morning's off to a good start. We could be one step closer to learning the motive in the deadliest mass shooting in American history. Las Vegas police expected to give an update this morning. Now, this comes as MGM Resorts, which owns the Mandalay Bay Hotel, disputes the timeline given by authorities. The hotel claims Stephen Paddock opened fire on the crowd just seconds after first shooting a security guard, but police say he started shooting 6 minutes later. A Missouri Democrat is at it again. State Senator Maria Chappelle-Nadal tweeting this picture comparing President Trump to Hitler. The image is a recreation of a controversial Dove ad that featured a black woman transforming into a white woman. This latest incident comes 2 months after the state senator posted on Facebook wishing for President Trump's assassination. She was removed from committee assignments as punishment. And this is what we mean by proud American, a coal miner singing the national anthem before heading underground for a day of work.
For the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And that is Josh Stowers singing for his coworkers in West Virginia. All of them, as you can see, bowing their heads in respect. The person who posted it on Facebook writing, quote, "There's no kneeling in this bathhouse." And boy, does he have a good voice. That's a look at your headlines. Send it downstairs to Ainsley. It's Casual Friday, I guess.
Yes, it is. We're in our workout clothes. Thank you so much, Jillian. She shared her big baby news with us yesterday, but Anna Koyman is not letting her pregnancy slow her down. This morning, she is back with some tips for modifying any of the workouts to make them baby friendly. And joining us now is our former weekend co-host, Anna Koyman, and also Kara Falk. She's an instructor with Barry's Boot Camp. I've taken one of your classes. They're amazing. So Barry's Boot Camp is all over the country. If you haven't taken one, it's really good. What makes them so amazing?
It's HIIT training. So it's so easily modifiable for pregnant people or for people trying to get into fitness. You're on the treadmill for a short period of time and then the floor back and forth. And you get your heart rate up and down, up and down.
And you can burn up to 1,000 calories. I used to take this class while I was here in New York City. Obviously, I'm not doing that type of working out now, not doing boot camps. During the first trimester, I was only doing yoga and tennis and walking, wasn't doing a whole lot.
You're
but now
so
my
tired
doctor,
in your first trimester.
Yeah, exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And you're feeling nauseous and all that. But my doctor's given me the all clear to do pretty much anything that feels good. But you've got some exercises that can help us modify
Show us
things.
what to do. You're going to tell me how to do it when you're not pregnant.
Ainsley and I are going to do the non-pregnant version, and we'll show Anna the pregnant modifications.
Okay.
So we're going to start with an arm series. She's going to use the band. Ainsley and I will use the weights. We'll hit the arms, biceps, and triceps. So you're going to stand on the bands and hold. Now you can do this with one foot to be the most modified, both feet to be in between. So we're just going to bicep curl. We'd say 10 to 15 reps here. And then we'll switch to the back of the arm, the triceps. So you're going to flip forward, hinge at your hips, and kick back. And you'll do the exact same thing with the bands. Exactly. I would say 3 sets of 10 to 15 reps here.
Okay, good.
And always, of course, listen to your body. That goes for all women.
Yeah,
but
and this is
especially
nice,
women.
too. If you're traveling or something, you can just pop this in your suitcase.
So easy. That goes for everybody.
What's the next
second movement? Squat press. So Ainsley and I would rack the weights on the shoulders. We'd sit into a squat, press the weights up and overhead. And again, 3 sets, 10 to 15 reps here. For Anna, we're going to modify a bit. So she's going to, without weights, squat in front of a chair. Again, easy peasy, grab at home. Squat. Hover the butt over the chair, right back up. You can add pulses.
So no weights for Anna.
Right, no weights.
So 3, 2, 1.
So real quickly, talk to your doctor. Doctor, you were telling us 3 tips. Talk to your doctor. Second tip was what?
Don't start anything new. If weight training was not a part of your regimen before pregnancy, don't start now. She was doing this long before, so she'll be good to go.
What was the third tip?
You always want to be able to have a conversation, right? You don't want your heart rate to go too
want your heart
high.
rate so high. You guys should be able to talk while you're working out. Your heart rate is up so high you can't converse too high. The second part is that we're going to sit you down for your shoulder press. You can grab the weights.
Okay, while you're doing that, we're going to talk about Anna. Anna she's going to be hosting Good Day LA if you live in that area. She's going to be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Yes, Monday through Friday.
Yes,
Ainsley,
and
I'm
your
so
parents
excited.
are joining you there because they haven't seen you in a while.
To LA, and so make sure you tune in KTTV. You can go to kttv.com and stream it live if you're not in the Los Angeles area.
So cute.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. We're so happy for you. Okay, coming up. The Harvey Weinstein scandal continues to grow with authorities from New York to London investigating. And now Amazon has a harassment scandal of its own. TMZ founder Harvey Levin is breaking the details in this case by the hour. He is here with the latest and fits in the air instead of knees on the ground at last night's NFL game. A victory for President Trump. We'll talk about it.